Hey, what's up, Bryce?
Hey, nice to hear from you guys. I'm on, I think. Am I on?
You are. We gotcha.
Uh, cool. I hate to. I feel like such a luddite every time I'm trying to get on Spaces. I'm like, okay, now how do I do this again? But okay, glad to be here.
Sweet. Well, welcome. We'll do just a quick intro for
Yeah.
everybody. Thanks for being here. It's the first space for UFO Twitter Week. I'm really excited for this week. We've got some great spaces. First one up here, we've got Bryce Zabel and a bunch more during the week. So a lot of my motivation behind the week is just to get a lot more focused discussion around the UFO topic, psychic phenomenon, consciousness, UAPs, advocacy. We're talking about Hollywood, UFOs, media, journalism, all of that today too with Bryce. So really appreciate everybody for being here. Tag UFO Twitter Week, share the spaces out, join the discussion. Feel free to jump up and ask some questions if you want, and just raise your hand, request to speak, and we'll get you up here. So Bryce, I just wanted to give a little bit for Bryce, who people who aren't aware, he's an award-winning screenwriter, producer, he's an author. A lot of you probably know him as a host of Need to Know, and also as a creator for Dark Skies series on the UFO and the alien topic. So he's really been on the forefront of the conversation in Hollywood and journalism. So thanks, Bryce, for being here. Appreciate you taking the time today.
Hey, much appreciated. And you and I have been through a bit of controversy in the last week or so together.
I'd say, yeah. So much so, we did a whole episode to recap what's been going on. We still have a lot of engage. I mean, those are probably the two most popular episodes in terms of engagement from the community and what people have thought, and are still really polarized about what happened.
Yeah, I mean, should we do a quick update on that?
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what happened about, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, is that Ross Coulthard and I do Need to Know. We've done like 65 episodes together in a couple of weeks. And usually, by the way, in the first 64 of them, Ross and I would either send a text to each other or an email, or we would talk on the phone or do a signal chat or something to figure out what we were going to talk about. Not too detailed, but some. And we didn't, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything came up prior to us deciding we were rolling on number 65. Is that your recollection as
Yeah.
well?
No. No really pre-show
Right.
notes or anything. Yeah.
Nothing. So we're just kind of cruising along, and Ross is a pretty funny guy, and sometimes he has described journalism as bullshit on the run. So he said, he that's his attitude. It's like, yeah, we'll get through this, mate. So that's cool. I don't mind doing that. So we're talking, and he just starts laying shit down that I didn't have any clue he was going to talk about. Number one, he said. That we cracked the or the gravitics issue 40 or 50 years ago, which was shocking. I didn't know he believed that, and I thought I knew most of the things he believed. Next thing he says is that China's behind all the drones, and their drones are so effective that they could ground the entire U.S. air presence if they wanted to. And that shocked me because we've done multiple episodes about drones, and he was skeptical about the Chinese explanation. So that was a reversal from my point of view. And then about 50 minutes into the show, Ross says, and I'm trying to wrap it up because we try to keep it under an hour. And I said, well, I think it's time for us to, think about closing this down. And Ross says, well, before we go, Bryce, there's just one thing I want to say. And this is a quote. He says, I now know categorically that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin technology. And I really had never heard him say that before. I'd always, assumed or interpreted or thought he said that he thought, based on the way it behaved, it was probably anomalous technology, probably NHI of some kind. So I was pretty shocked. I didn't really have any time to think about it, and Ross repeated himself. So that kind of got us off and rolling. So Tyler, what Tyler is talking about here is the idea that because Ross and I did not get a chance to actually get into that whole issue, we did an entire other episode where we brought in a couple of other podcasters and did a panel and kicked it around. And I think that the controversy over the Tic Tac being homegrown technology or exotic anomalous technology is still going on. So that's that.
Right, and as we went forward through that week too, we found out about the psionic aspect to it, which I found, really interesting when you dig into it, and it kind of goes a little bit full circle on what it seems he was working on, before prior to that with Jake Barber and this, controlling psionic aspect where using consciousness to kind of direct the ships. So it would kind of almost progress into this where one of the things I thought about, Bryce, too, as we were talking about it, is if Lockheed Martin and DARPA and all of these, companies have these psionic guys, wouldn't we should be able to find some of these guys that are coming out and
You
that
would
are
think.
making content. Yeah, so I wonder now, we've there's talks about firsthand whistleblowers in the next coming hearings. What is the what would you like to see in terms of advocacy
Mm.
on the topic as we go forward here in this rest of the year?
Well, I think I want to I would like to see what so many comments ask for, which is, well, show me the money here. Don't just say you've got a source and leave it at that. And as you pointed out, we really got a lot of response to this. I think that first video had something like 2,000 comments in it. 2,000 comments, not views, but comments from people, and people were up in arms about it. I didn't really at the time, by the way, Tyler. Let me just clarify this. So on our show, Need to Know, Ross said, "I now know categorically that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin technology," which seems pretty direct to me, and that's why I was so shocked. Then he goes on his News Nation reality check and starts doing what Tyler you are talking about, where he said, "Yeah, I wasn't really saying necessarily that they built it, but they might have had one, and if they have one, it might be flown by humans psionically and all that." Do I have that right, or did I miss anything there?
Right.
Let's make sure I'm
Yeah.
okay. So to be quite honest with you, and I don't want this this whole thing to become about that issue, because I'm sure there's other things people here would like to talk about. Um, but I've now had some time to really think about it, and I've read those 2,000 comments, and I've read some books, parts of books that deal with this. I just don't believe it. Now, I know Ross believes it. I think Ross is a fine journalist, and I've enjoyed working with him, and I hope to continue to work with him. But, the fact that we do a show together doesn't mean we have to agree about everything. We don't have to march in lockstep on everything. In fact, a discussion where people can disagree with each other, but do it agreeably and with respect for the other guy, I think that's a good thing for us to do. So on this one, I part company. Now, I'm willing to be proved wrong, of course, and that's where the answer to your hearing question is. If there are firsthand witnesses that can be brought into a hearing or dragged into a hearing or subpoenaed into a hearing that say, yeah, as a matter of fact, Lockheed Martin does have an entire hangar of these things, then I'd like to hear that. Uh, I really, if if all I'm left with is the statement that they do have the technology, and I don't have a lot more to go on, my logic tells me it's not true. I mean, if you go back to the whole situation with the Nimitz back in 2004, remember the statement one of the radar guys said. He goes, "It's there's whole fleets of them." Right? Fleets of them. I do not think Lockheed Martin was flying fleets of Tic Tacs in a protected zone around a battle carrier group without telling anybody. I just don't buy that. It just doesn't seem reasonable to me. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. Others can weigh in and talk about it. For myself, unless they do get somebody into a hearing who can shed some light on that. By the way, I am not saying that aerospace companies haven't been investing prodigious amounts of money into this reverse engineering. I'm sure they have. And I'm also not saying that they haven't got their hands on some recovered technology. I think they probably have. I just don't buy that 21 years ago they were flying a Tic Tac. I don't buy it.
That's fair. That's fair, and I think that's probably a lot of the sentiment that's there in the community. And we've speculated on the sources, but I think it would probably make a lot of the community feel a little uncomfortable if Grush was really one of those sources for that. All right, I want to change gears here because one of the things that was talked about in the space, in kind of even on our stream today when we went live, was the Spielberg movie that's coming out. And I wonder
Sure.
what do you have any expectations for that, or what, and maybe recently too, have you seen as an impact in Hollywood in terms of the UFO or UAP topic?
Hmm. Well, I don't have expectations for it because I don't think very many people know that much about it. Although I don't know how long that can continue. I mean, they did have to go shoot it. I'm sure they tried to get people to sign NDAs about the movie and all that. But, to make a movie, there's a lot of people from actors to studio execs to all the people who worked on the movie and edited the movie and everything. There's a lot of people that probably know what that film is about. I do not right now. I don't know what it's about. I don't even know if the title that people are throwing around, Disclosure, is any more than a working title. Uh, there seems to be a pretty big shroud of secrecy around it. My expectations are that Steven Spielberg, who I have actually worked with. I worked on Taken, his show Taken. Um, so I don't know him well. I sat with him at the Emmys when I was the chairman of the TV Academy. We didn't talk about UFOs or anything, but I know that he's into the topic. I mean, anybody who's listening to us right now knows that Steven Spielberg cares about the UFO topic. He's been interested in it for years. And given that this supposedly has something to do with it, then my expectation is he's going to try to extend what he's been saying over the years on the topic. Uh, but I will say this, for people that try to say that somehow Spielberg is a messenger about UFOs or whatever, you have to look at one thing and say, well, what is the message then? Because he's got Space Brothers in Close Encounters. He's got cuddly alien scientists in ET. He's got marauding aliens in War of the Worlds. In Falling Skies, he has a battle waged on Earth with sometimes hand to hand and gun combat with aliens. So he's and then Taken is sort of the historical version. He's been all over the map if there's a message he's trying to tell us. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a message movie or not. It's probably uh, bound to be very interesting. I know that David Kep, I believe, wrote the screenplay. He is the guy that wrote the first Jurassic Park and the most recent Jurassic Park. So I have expectations that I will be there on opening day. And if he wants to invite me to the premiere, I'll be there too. But who knows? Who knows what we're going to get? I really don't.
Well, I think people too that you mentioned Taken. There's I see John down there. There's a group who was having spaces and discussing the series Taken because of how relevant it is today. And
Right.
you could probably say the same about Dark Skies,
Yeah.
But what do you think? That's why I think people are kind of looking a little bit more into it of how disclosure or the alien topic will be
Oh,
kind of portrayed in the media so that the public can maybe
sure.
understand it.
Well, there's a couple of, well, first there's the Spielberg project. Then I'm led to believe that Jerry Bruckheimer has a UFO themed project. And that, I mean, I only know what I read on this one. This is no great insight from me. I don't know. I don't have a source that told me something, but I believe David Grush was supposed to be advising them on that. Uh,
Didn't I think too? We were talking about Obama was having something in production with Betty and Barney Hill.
No,
No,
that
that
didn't happen.
okay.
And by the way, just to go back, I am a Betty and Barney Hill aficionado, and I have been developing a Betty and Barney Hill movie, and I've written a feature version and a television series version going back since 2012, I think. So I was a little disturbed when I read the Obamas were going to do it for their Netflix deal. I did read that screenplay, and I guess the difference is I believe Betty and Barney Hill were abducted. I believe it happened. And the screenplay from the Obama version was basically written from the point of view that they sort of uh, had a shared dream state. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not French. Folie à deux or something like that, where it was kind of Betty's dreams and whatever infected Barney's memories, which to me is really kind of blah. Anyway, it's not being made, hasn't been made, doesn't appear to be made. There's another project out though, um, that shows more sign of life. It's been in the trades, um, but it also is one that's based on something that says Betty and Barney weren't really abducted. So, I'm not giving up the ghost. I'm still going to try to make a Betty and Barney movie or television series that accepts that they were abducted and then tries to tell a story about that. I do think you'll probably see something about Betty and Barney, whether it's mine or somebody else's, sometime in the next year or so. It's got to be shot, it's got to be edited, it's got to be marketed and all that. So I don't know, and I wouldn't know where it'll show up. But there is a lot of interest. I've got a meeting tomorrow. I can't tell you where, but I've got a meeting tomorrow about another project. That's UFO related. I think people are interested, although I will tell you this, Tyler, many times when I go into a meeting about a UFO project, the first thing people say is, "So you know a lot about this UFO thing, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "So what's really going on?" I mean, sometimes people uh, you know, it used to be that a good UFO slash alien movie was just a writer coming in and go, I got this great idea about an alien thing, and it didn't have to be based in any reality at all. But I think as we begin more and more to accept the phenomenon as a reality, that gets reflected in Hollywood product as well. Certainly, that's what I tried to do on Dark Skies, which I will remind folks, it was an NBC series that preceded Taken. And it was about an alien invasion that took place in the 1960s. The pilot, basically a 2-hour pilot, ended with JFK's assassination because he was going to tell the nation the truth about Roswell in his second term. So that's about as subversive a television show I've ever done, and I'm still proud of that one. Um, and I think you're going to see a lot more. I hope that what we see are a lot more projects that are based in what those of us who are listening and talking today know to be true about the phenomenon instead of just made up stories.
And I think too, you could see more and more evidence of some sort of cover-up activity, where might not necessarily be the truth of the phenomenon that it's about, but the hiding of what's actually going
Well,
on and how that's taking place.
that reminds me that just go back to your Spielberg movie point. Again, I don't know anything about it that you and your listeners wouldn't know by just reading what's in the papers and the trades. But one of the things they were reporting is that there were scenes that people observed being shot that looked like a chase scene. So it does seem to me that part of whatever that movie from Spielberg is going to have that action of cover up in it potentially. So it'd be interesting to see what he does with it. Listen, it's always interesting to see what he does with any movie. I'm particularly interested to see what he does about, UFOs, because if you think about it, Close Encounters is at the beginning of his career, and even though I hope he has many years left to be making movies, this latest film will be closer to the end of his career. They are like the bookend pieces of his thinking on the state of UFO reality and the reality of the phenomenon. So he's bound to have something to say by saying whatever he says.
Right. I think I'll throw it to you, John. I think the main people, what they're wondering, same when I go into like a movie about time travel, is how they explain it. Like how the
Right.
time travel works. How are the aliens making contact? How are the civilizations coming and doing it? Is a big part of people's interests as well. John, go ahead. You got to.
Actually,
Yeah.
Tyler, can I just jump
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
before you bring John in? I wrote a movie in 1993 for the Sci-Fi Channel. It was called Official Denial, and it was the first full-length movie ever made originally for the Sci-Fi Channel. The very concept of that movie was that the government knew a Whitley Strieber-like experiencer was telling the truth, so they wired up his house in order to shoot down a UFO. And that was the concept of the movie. The surprise of the movie at the end of it was that they were us from the future. So I think I was ahead of the curve on they're just us from the future with that film. And the only reason I interrupt you to say that is that there were so many meetings with studio execs and with I mean just sitting around with producers trying to defend my script and etc., where people were trying to get their brain around time travel. It's still one of the most confusing things to portray in a film. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's even a line at the end of Terminator where there's a voiceover saying, "If you think too much about this time travel thing, it'll drive you nuts." Some version of that, and I think that's true. And all I remember is there was a point where we were getting very close to where we had to lock this script down and go shoot the damn thing. And somebody in the room, I might have been me, might have been the producer, I cannot remember, but somebody said, "Well, the future is unwritten." And for whatever reason, the idea that the future could be impacted in a way by what decisions were being made in the future, going back into somehow we all went, "Oh, that's it, okay," and then we went ahead and made the movie. So I let people who watch it judge for themselves whether it makes any sense or not. I probably would write a different script today, but that was then, and this is now. So on to John.
Thanks, Bryce and Astral. I really appreciate the UFO Twitter space and bringing Bryce in to talk about UFOs in Hollywood. And it's interesting that you brought up Taken. Of course, that's why I popped up. So, Bryce, I've hosted spaces where we did breakdowns
Ah,
of every episode of Taken because I had recently we were talking about it here in the spaces, and most of the people who are kind of new to the topic the last 10 years had never heard of it or seen it, didn't know about it because it's one of those products that when it came out, kind of like Dark Skies, like it's not out there anywhere. You can't really find it. It's not streaming, and so many people had never seen it. So we kind of did this whole rewatch where we broke down every episode, and it really felt like it was so well rounded because it talks about all the different types of the phenomena we see here that we talk about in spaces all the time. I mean, from psionics to the history to all the different types of things in there. And I didn't know you had worked on it, or we would have reached out and seen if you
sure,
wanted to come talk about it. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Taken. What was your role in it,
sure.
and why do you think like it's not out there? Like
Mm,
why it's never been picked back up? I know that it was kind of an experiment because they when Sci-Fi aired it, it was like the first. It was kind of like a binge watch because they did it over 2 weeks,
yeah.
where you had to watch it every night, Monday through Friday, a 2-hour episode every. And I feel like that format was so weird and bizarre that kind of helped it fail because if you weren't watching every single episode for 2 weeks, because every episode goes right into the next episode, that you would get lost and you wouldn't be able to follow it. And so I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
I have a very complex and complicated relationship to Taken. I'll be honest with you. I will say, by the way, people were not prevented from seeing it. It won the Emmy Award. And like I said, the year before it won the Emmy Award. No, the year it won the no, I sat with Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks at the Emmys the year Band of Brothers won the Emmy. And then the next year, I believe, Taken won the Emmy. Anyway, here's the deal. Um, you can still get it and stream it someplace, I think, and you could probably even buy it off Apple Plus. I think not true of Dark Skies. Dark Skies can only be seen as a DVD set, which, by the way, I do recommend. I don't make a dime off it, but I do recommend it because they put a two-hour documentaries about the making of it onto that DVD set that everybody participated in, and it was great. Anyway, so um, the reason I have a complicated relationship with it is that Dark Skies came first. All right. And in the first episode of Taken, uh, my lead actor on Dark Skies was Eric Close. They cast Eric Close in their first episode. My director of my Dark Skies pilot was Toby Hooper. They hired Toby Hooper to direct their first episode. My producer of the Dark Skies series was Steve Beers. They hired Steve Beers to produce uh, the first Taken episode, and I worked on Taken after Dark Skies. And so there was a pretty heavy Dark Skies influence. That's all I can say. Um, what happened uh, in the development process is originally a team was created. Um, I think there were like 5 or 6 of us, and we all gathered in the room and broke story for, gosh, I want to say 6 months. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I don't. My memory's not totally clear on that right now. Um, and we had a pretty good take on it. And I remember at the time that myself and two of the other uh, executive producers, Les Boheme and Manny Cotto, um, we had this is before Zoom, so we were uh, put into a meeting with Spielberg, who was in the Hamptons, and we were out here in Hollywood. And so we had a couple of these meetings with him. I just remember the first one because it makes me laugh. We're sitting there waiting, and we see Spielberg, in the Hamptons taking his seat and all that. And we got a guy on our end on the camera. I mean, it was a bigger deal by far than a Zoom these days. And the guy on our end goes, "Oh no, we have a problem." And I'm thinking, well, this is not good. You don't have a problem with Steven Spielberg. And and we go, what is it? And he goes, "Steven doesn't like your lighting." So they brought in some lights and lit us up. So now I at least can say I was lit by Steven Spielberg. So that makes me feel good. In any case, though, we developed a pretty strong take on it. And for whatever reason, I never understood it, but they basically said, "Steven doesn't know what he wants to do with this, so we're sort of abandoning the writing room." And so everybody kind of went away. And I ended up getting a job on something else. I can't remember at the time. Then I actually ran for the TV Academy gig. So I wasn't available when they got themselves back together. And to the best of my knowledge, it was mostly Les Boheme writing from some of the scripts and stories that we had broken in that room. Anyway, that's my experience with Taken.
Oh wow. Well, so yeah, a little bit hurt feelings there
A
because
little bit,
I
but
can totally
yeah,
understand that.
yeah,
I can totally understand that. Well, I really appreciate it. I was just watching these Jaws documentary
yeah.
about the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and talking about how all he wanted to do was a UFO movie, and then he got the script for Jaws and went full on Jaws. And as I was rewatching the movie, and I never had noticed this before, there's
UFOs.
there's two little UFO Easter eggs in it.
God,
Absolutely. And I
I
was like, oh,
John, I got
wow.
to tell you, I had the same thing. I decided, my wife and I were like, well, we should. It's been so many years since we've seen Jaws, and it's probably cleaned up as a picture. Let's watch it. I'm watching that thing, and there's Roy Scheider out in the middle of the night on that boat, waiting for what would be the big battle the next day. And I mean, some people said it was a shooting star, but I believe it's from two different angles. Shooting stars don't tend
Yep.
to reverse direction or whatever. It's clear, and I don't think anybody's hidden the idea that it was meant to be some kind of UFO,
No,
unless
it was
somebody knows
really
different than
cool.
me. And I thought, well, it is a nice little Easter egg, and it really did uh, become a precursor to the fact that he would do Close Encounters very quickly after that.
Yeah, I mean, we owe all of Spielberg's UFO movies and TV series on Jaws,
Yes.
basically. So,
Well, you know
so
what? I believe, well, you may not, because listen, I'm not an expert on Steven Spielberg's life or anything. You'd have to ask him. But if I'm not mistaken, didn't he shoot as a kid a movie about aliens and UFOs and cover ups? I think he did.
yeah, he did some World War II stuff, but I don't
No,
know.
no,
He
I
might
think I
have.
think as a kid he shot a UFO movie. I don't know
Wow, we
what it
need to
was
find that.
called. I don't know anything more about that. I read it someplace. Good source, I think. Maybe my friend Robbie Graham told me that. He's the guy that wrote Silver Screen Saucers. Um, but yeah, I think I obviously it was a kid's film. It wasn't going to be put in theaters or anything. But my point is, I believe, like many of us, he's been thinking about this topic a very long time.
So, one more question for you before I let other people talk.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like he was read in by anyone? Did he have any secret sources? What do you, when you think about all the stuff he knows and what was going on, was it just people like you, good writers, people who had knowledge, or do you feel like he had some insider help?
I don't know. Um, Probably only he knows. Um, I know people have said that for years. Uh, I would say this in those meetings that I described, where the three of us, met with him, he seemed like a guy that was well read on the topic and interested on the topic, but he didn't seem like he had hardcore positions about this is what's really going on, which is what that's why I kind of I, I'm a little skeptical of the being read in, only because of the breadth of his contributions uh, to the alien genre, including Indiana Jones and Crystal Skulls and stuff like that. I mean, he's really covered a lot of things. I'm not sure that he was read in. I do know that there's some great stories. I mean, he showed E.T. at the White House. Ronald Reagan was president, and as the story goes, afterwards, Reagan said to him, the only uh, the only people who in this room who know just how true that film is are you and me. So
Right. I've
I
heard
just
that
looked
story
up
too.
real quick. The movie that you're talking about
yeah,
is called Firelight, made in 1964 when Spielberg was 17 years
right
old. He made it. It was about alien encounters and mysterious disappearances. So even way back then, that's pretty. I'd love to see that movie actually. See what his thoughts were.
now.
There's a 16 minutes of it online, I think,
Oh,
without
that's
sound.
cool. Um, all I would say is this, and I can't go into complete detail right now because, frankly, I'm writing a book called Strange Visitors: Close Encounters of the Hollywood Kind, where I'm going to be talking about a lot of these things, but mostly inspired by something that happened to me and my creative partner Brent Friedman during the Dark Skies series, where we were approached by people who claimed to be from the Office of Naval Intelligence. So
Oh yes, the
uh,
classic story.
yeah.
Nice.
So there are, I mean, I can't, I'm not able to say from personal experience what Steven Spielberg did or did not do, nor for anyone else. I will say I know pretty close about two things. I know that Brent and I were approached, and I also know that Tom DeLonge approached them, right? I mean, we may have been approached by somebody, but Tom DeLonge approached them. And Tom DeLonge, if you trust his version of events, he was read into the program to a greater or a lesser degree. All I would say is, from my own personal point of view, is given that somebody did apparently try to strike a deal, if you will, with Brent Friedman and myself, it would seem probable that they didn't leave it as a one shot. Let's just talk to Bryce Zabel and Brent Friedman. And if that doesn't work out, let's close the shop. That doesn't sound reasonable. So I'm sure other people have had experiences on that. And I'm talking to some of them right now. And again, I hope to have a clearer take on all that when this book comes out.
Do you think it's to get you to go a certain way on the topic, or to like kind of manipulate you, or to try and shut down the topic altogether?
Uh, Definitely not to shut down the topic. Um, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you just. I'd rather not spend 30 minutes going through every detail of it, because I think that in a way um, there's other things to talk about. But I will tell you a very quick, truncated version of it to answer your question, Tyler. What happened is we were having a party uh, at my house that was a premiere party for Dark Skies. We had already shot the 2-hour pilot, it was about to air, and we had shot several other episodes, and we had a number of scripts in prep. And there were 200 people in my backyard. They were cast, crew, studio, network execs. And the thing is, I knew every single one of them. I knew them by their first names. I know who they were. Uh, and interestingly enough, we had given everybody a little Majestic 12 badge when they showed up to wear during the party, right? Because it was a sort of indoor outdoor party, lots of TV sets, and the show was going to debut at 8 o'clock. And Majestic 12 was a key part of the Dark Skies series. That's where that was its main set, the Majestic 12 set. And I have a friend, a producer friend, who comes up to me and goes, "There's this guy here. You probably need to talk to him." And this guy comes up, and he looks about 30 years old, kind of dressed, khaki slacks and a blue blazer kind of thing, kind of preppy, kind of in a way. But I've never met him before. I don't know who he is. And he says to me that he's was sent to the party to tell us how much They appreciated what we had done. They thought we were doing a pretty good job, but uh, they thought there were some things we got a lot right, but there are a few things that they thought we should maybe know about. And me being the asshole I was back then, I said, "Oh, you've already seen this. Uh, so what happens after the crop circle scene?" And the guy goes, "Oh, well, they take him back to Majestic 12 and they do that operation and they pull this ganglion out of his head and blah, blah, blah." Well, the show had not aired yet, but he was 100% right. That is exactly what happened. And I'm not saying that the Dark Skies script or film was kept under lock and key, like documents at Area 51. I mean, people had to watch it, people had seen it, but it wasn't that easy to get your hands on it. So it was strange. It got stranger from there, but I'm going to leave that part of the story uh, because I'm still working on pulling together some of those details, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, so he did tell us he was from the Office of Naval Intelligence, that they wanted to have a meeting and that kind of thing. So I do know that that happened. And I know that I'm not making it up because it happened to other people. My partner was there, and this producer was there, and my wife was there. And, there's a lot of people that were aware of this thing happening. And we all talked about it at the office in the days afterwards. And, at the beginning, my first thought was, well, this is probably bullshit. I mean, somebody is just, it's a hoax. Somebody's pulling a joke on us. But as things went on, some of the things they said made me believe that was not the case.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to drop down. Bryce, good to have you
Thank
here.
you.
UFO Twitter Week in Spaces. I hope you come back to our
I
spaces. We love
appreciate it.
talking to you.
Thanks so much.
Sweet. And we'll go around to some hands too. I know a bunch of people jumped up here. We got Rich, and then we'll go to Mav, and then I saw Red jumped up. What's up, guys?
Hey, happy UFO Twitter week, guys. Astro, thanks for putting this on. Bryce, thank you for being here and sharing your time with us. I've got three really tough questions, but I'll just start off with the first one and see how it goes.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people have other questions, so we'll just go from there. Because you're so tied into Hollywood, and I look at you as a historian on the topic, but also politically.
Yeah.
And we're in such a time right now, everybody is talking about it. Could you elaborate what your feelings are behind this comment or question I'm going to relate to you? Is time and plasma cosmology the real quote unquote island hiding behind government corruption? And what does Danny Sheehan know that connects all of this? And when do you think he's going to come out with his glory days? Thank you, Bryce.
I don't know the answer to the first part of that question. I'm not even sure I understand it. I mean, I'm not a scientist. And while I am I was and still like to think of myself as a journalist, that's not my specialty. In fact, part of the attraction to this for me is probably what I think for many of us listening in and participating today is we just want to know, can somebody please just explain to me, confirm that A, it's all that something is real, and B, try to help us understand it and what it means. And so cosmology, I don't know. I just don't know. My mind is open to learning more. I don't know everything. I learn a little bit more every day, and I hope that someday my brain is all going to pull it all together into something as comprehensible as
I
possible.
can appreciate that. How about this question? Do you
Well,
think
let's
the
go to Danny
government
Sheehan
has
though,
defined?
because
Do you
you
think?
asked about Danny Sheehan though as part two.
Yeah.
I
What
know
about
Danny
government?
Sheehan.
What about government disclosure? Do you think it's been defined clearly enough that we can all say what we know it to be?
No, of course not. I mean, I think that it's been compartmentalized over the years. Um, and I think not every there's got to be very, very few people out there who think who have been briefed on everything that there is to know about it. And even those people, I'm pretty sure, don't know everything. I mean, I think that I, look, a lot of things have obviously gone on behind the scenes that we're not. shared with us. My big beef has been the people who are given money to study this don't share their work, and yet I'm paying their salaries as a taxpayer, so that's bothered me. But I don't know. I don't think anyone quite knows it. Which, by the way, the one credit I have that I'm also very proud of is I wrote a book called AD After Disclosure with Richard Dolan, where we spent a year trying to answer the question that you just asked. You know, what's disclosure look like? What's it going to mean? How's it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And I look. It depends on how you define it. By one definition, disclosure is happening right now, right? That's the slow drip disclosure. Um, I use a film term to describe it, though. I mean, we're here to talk about Hollywood as well, so I'll use a Hollywood term. Disclosure can be either a slow dissolve or a hard cut. And Dolan and I thought probably it would turn into a hard cut. But I think now, since 2017, it's easier to look at it more as a slow dissolve. And in fact, I'll give you another metaphor. If AD stands for after disclosure, BC stands for before confirmation. And we are in the transition from a BC world to an AD world. And, you know, uh, the people who are listening right now, I assume all of us know there's a phenomenon of some kind. We all have a lot of different opinions about it, but we know something's going on. So it's been confirmed for us, but we all have families and we have friends and we have coworkers who don't care at all about it. Don't don't know anything about it, don't care to know anything about it, and even when they do know something about it, they'd rather talk about something else. So they're not confirmed yet. So we're in a world where we are learning slowly by degrees. And who's to say that's wrong? I don't really know. I'm not an expert about the human condition. I can only speculate based on my own experiences. You may, your mileage may differ, as they say. But who knows?
What are your thoughts on The
Maybe we have
Simpsons?
to do it slow. Maybe
What are
that's
your
why
thoughts?
we've been doing it. What's
What are
that?
your thoughts on The Simpsons and the tie-in to the phenomenon? The Simpsons seem, in your tie-in to Hollywood, they seem to be able to protect a lot of really unique things that are coming up.
I think I missed the first word of that. What's my
The
take on
Oh,
what?
Simpsons. Yeah.
The Simpsons.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk. We'll go over
what's
this
your
and then we'll
take
throw
on
it
The
around. But
Simpsons?
yeah, he was talking about the Simpsons and how they tie in different things and almost like a
I
time
don't
travel
know a
thing.
thing about The Simpsons. Although I am from Portland, Oregon, where the creator of The Simpsons hails from, and I remember reading it in a local paper when it was called what, Life in Hell or something like that.
Our Simpsons right now would probably be the X Files, where the X Files show has shown a lot of things that were like, wait a minute, that's that there's the same with Dark Skies, same with Taken. I think there's a lot of
But
things
I'm
that you were
confused.
just talking
What are we
about.
talking about here? Are we saying did I just miss something? Did my brain misfire? What are we
Yeah,
talking about?
no, that was a random question, but
So is The Simpsons? I mean, The Simpsons. I don't watch The Simpsons much. Has that show actually said things about UFOs a lot?
It's made
I
a
don't think
lot of
about UFOs.
predictions of
No,
the
they've
future
they've
coming
done
true.
some predictive. Yeah, they've done some predictive things where just like the Trump inauguration, going down the escalator, they had something very similar. Some events that you could line up as happening on the show, and then they happened in real life. That's kind of what it.
Okay.
But I
All
don't
right.
want to get bogged down with that. But
All
all right,
right.
let's throw it around. Trazen jumped up.
They predicted they predicted the Higgs boson was.
Well, I mean, that shows you the world we live in, where the Simpsons are our leading science authority. So there you go. I may have.
Do you
Is anybody there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Ah,
I was going to ask you.
yeah.
There's definitely a lot in this community. A lot of people who say that we shouldn't trust anything that comes out of anybody that's in the government's mouth. Do you feel that way? Say somebody's
Do I think you
counterintelligent
shouldn't
comes
trust
forward like
anything that comes out of the government? Now, that is a good question. Um, well,
it's
I don't
like
think you should instinct.
who those are the
Yeah.
people that are in the know. You would think that they would have the information. So if they come forward, they're the only person that might have access to that information. But at the same time, people are saying we should not trust them because
Well,
they were involved in the program to begin with.
I go back with, I'm not a Reaganite by any means, but Ronald Reagan once said, "Trust but verify," and I think that that's where I stand on the government. I mean, I'm willing to trust them on things that I can verify. Um, I acknowledge they probably have more information than I do. I wish they'd share their work, and I wish they'd share some of that knowledge. They haven't as much as I would like. And I think the thing that Ross Coulthard and I have always agreed on is that we're going to have to do this ourselves, folks. This is no longer a world where you could only get the information of confirmation from the government. It used to be that way when they had all the best toys, but now we have a lot of really great toys ourselves, and we're just going to have to do this ourselves. And by the way, apropos of nothing, Tyler, but I see, is it Red Koala Panda that is one of our listeners? I just wanted to do a shout out to this person and say I am blown away by some of the AI videos that he's made.
Oh, that's right. You commented he did the award show, and you said that you've done the Emmys show
I
too.
just
I
thought
thought
that
that
was
was a big
so.
shout out.
Some of those.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I know that there's people who probably don't like being portrayed, you know, but I just thought, we also have to be able to laugh at ourselves. We have to uh, understand that being human is just, you know, yes, UFOs are part of our culture now, and I would rather make fun of somebody than attack them as a human being. So I think it's you're doing good work there, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun to play around, obviously, with AI and then try and edit it to make it feel like natural and live. You know what I mean?
How
You know,
long do those things, like the award show one? How long did that
that one
take
was
you to
probably
do?
like 15 to 20 hours or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Well,
was kind of in the flow state because I was all like, I just thought it was like super funny the entire time I was making it, so I was just having like a great time.
it really shows, and I mean, it shows two things. It shows how deeply knowledgeable you are about sort of the cultural player aspect of this whole thing, but also it was very observant about what an award show looks like, and it showed off how great the AI capabilities are these days. Because if you're able to do that now, imagine what you'll do in a year or two.
It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. Anyway, good work.
Thank you.
And then we'll never be able to trust a UFO video ever again that we can.
Right.
Well, see, that's part of the, isn't that, I mean, listen, the same tools that are now being brought before us that will allow us to make progress on our own without being completely beholden to the government are also the tools that we are employing against ourselves. Um, like I have no problem with the fake award show because everyone knows it's a fake award show and it's a piece of comedy, right? And so when we all know that, but when people use those same tools to, try to confuse us about what's real and what's not on this very important topic, I have a little less tolerance because I, if you want to make a great UFO video and present it and say, look at this great UFO video I made, that's fine. Um, but it's not fine to make a great UFO video and pass it off as real because we're really trying to get to the bottom of this. I guess that's my take.
And this comes back to
Right.
like what I was saying about just the military is going to have the best data
Yeah.
because they're constantly observing. They constantly have multiple sensors running at all times and all over the world in the most remote places in the world. It's like if we're ever going to get any kind of concrete like sensor data evidence, it's going to come from the government, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I mean, they have a lot of data to pour over, but everything is data. These, a history book full of sighting cases is data. We create our own data too. Um, I just think we all need to be vigilant about data, whether it comes from the U.S. government or ourselves. We can't. We sometimes we have to be suspicious of what does come from the government, but we need to be equally suspicious of what comes from ourselves. And to the people that make fake UFO footage or photos, I say, shame on you. Stop doing that. You're not helping.
I think the transparency too of the, like, for example, the two organizations that I've been paying attention to this year are Arrow and Skywatcher.
Yep.
but they haven't really been too transparent about sharing the data portion of the sensors and all of their stuff. But it would help in the government, in the community transparency of what we would need to study and going forward for that help. All right, we got a couple hands coming up. Estimate of the situation jumped up too. What's up? Not Nora. Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you? I just wanted to ask Bryce if, while he worked for CNN or maybe as a screenwriter, if there were any stories or projects that he never got to produce that he wanted to share.
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because I've been dredging through all my career moments to try to write this book because I realized I've been interested in UFOs from the time I was young. And so I've tried to pull all that together. And I realized that in my journalism career, I mean, I'm a broadcast, I have a degree in broadcasting and I've worked in local news and then CNN, and then I was a PBS investigative reporter. And it literally, all these places, I would at one time or another try to say, maybe we should do a UFO story. At all the local stations, I was slapped down pretty strong. We're not doing that. I mean, I assume if a UFO had presented itself in the local community as a sighting, we might have done it, but we weren't going to cover UFOs. That was not serious. So I pretty well got told, don't do that. I remember at CNN, I suggested, because I was the space reporter, supposedly. This is at the very early days of CNN. And, among my various beats, if you will. One of them was space. So I got to cover, the Voyager encounter with Saturn and the space shuttle launches and landings and things like that. So pitched to my assignment editor in Los Angeles that we should maybe do a UFO story. And he basically said, okay, don't say that again. Don't say it to anybody in Atlanta. We have a hard enough time being taken seriously. Don't do that. So I was told not to do that. I The closest I got to talking about it was I did a live interview with Carl Sagan at PBS, and I was debating asking, and then I didn't, and then I ended up walking him to the parking lot and getting in a debate with Carl Sagan, if you can believe it, about UFOs in a parking lot, but that wasn't broadcast. So the only time I actually really got to write a UFO story in broadcasting was at that same PBS station. Not no, after leaving that PBS station, I went to work as a producer on a local magazine show, which was really more about entertainment than news, and they let me do a UFO story. So that was my first broadcasting UFO story.
What was the Sagan
Yeah, what was the
conversation
main
like?
debate there?
I listen. I mean, he was very nice, in the interview. And as I just as the host, I was the host of the show, so I thought, I said, I think he was on his way out to JPL to do an interview with Nightline or something. So I said, Dr. Sagan, I'll walk you out to your car, which no big deal one way or the other. It's just a nice gesture. So I'm walking him out to his car, and I don't know why. I got to tell you, I'm not 100% what caused me to do this because it is pretty bold and brash and maybe not polite. But I just said, Dr. Sagan, one thing I'm not really clear on here is you say that the universe has to be teeming with life. I'm not making a joke about billions and billions, but you say that the universe must be teeming with life because that it's so large. And okay, so if I accept that, and then at the same time you say, but they can't possibly be here because the distances are too vast. And I just said, you support SETI? Why wouldn't you support looking into this UFO issue? And boy, he didn't want to hear that. It got it didn't get heated. He just sort of, you know, I don't have my notes in front of me. I wrote them all down I don't have it in my head right now, but the essence of the conversation was, look, I'm a brighter guy than you, and don't question me on this thing. And, it was okay. I mean, he wasn't impolite, it's not like we got angry and yelled or anything, but his take was, um, you're barking up the wrong tree here, kid. I was young, very young, and he was just like, don't go there. That's not the way it is. And so, FYI, uh, I didn't necessarily do this in response to it. Well, maybe I did. On Dark Skies, I made Carl Sagan a character, and he gets inducted into Majestic 12, like Donald Menzel, if you will. And they basically bring him into Majestic 12 and say to him, "Here's the deal." They sort of pick him up off the streets, and the head of Majestic 12 says to him, "Here's the deal, Dr. Sagan. You can either learn everything we know, and then you work for us, but you're in no danger. If you don't want to work for us and you don't want to learn this, we'll let you off at the next block." And he says, "I want to know." And he ends up working for Majestic 12 in Dark Skies. So
That's like the
that's how
ultimate
crazy.
clap, the whole
Nice.
ultimate Hollywood clap back right
Yeah.
there.
So I have to say, it was one of my most favorite roles to write. It was just so fun to write Carl Sagan, especially after, I again, I don't want to imply he was rude or a bad person or anything. I mean, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson's far more rude than Carl Sagan on this topic. Tyson actually diminishes people that want to talk about the phenomenon, and he laughs at them, and he Tyson increases the amount of ridicule by his comments. Sagan never did that. Sagan was a calmer guy and was a more decent guy. Um, he did, he didn't do anything wrong. I just felt that he was wrong, and sort of used his persona as to make a point in Dark Skies, which is, you know. Knowing what's really going on is a powerful thing, and you can get people to do a lot of things if they feel like they can get the inside information, which is probably true today.
I think that really happened too, by the way, with Sagan,
It
more or
might have.
less. I think he was like part
I
of it
you
all.
know I certainly had not. Here's the only thing I can tell you: I had never read, when I was writing Dark Skies, I had never read anything that had ever been possible with Sagan. Although I believe Hynek said something after the Tonight Show once about Sagan that would imply it might have happened. I don't know. Um, but I had never read it back then. And also during Dark Skies, my partner and I had never read anything about JFK and UFOs. When we did Dark Skies, we simply said, let's take the two greatest conspiracy theories of all time, JFK and UFOs, let's put them in an atom collider and see what we get. And that became the show Dark Skies. Now, of course, you can find stuff about JFK and UFOs on the internet.
We're trying to find the real files though on
Right.
the JFK. Nora, you want to go ahead, back up with question?
Yeah, I just since we're talking about UFOs in Hollywood, I just wanted to ask Bryce, like, what's your opinion on the like occult themes in ufology and how that connects to like Hollywood conspiracies? I'm sure you've seen Matthew Brown has tweeted some like occult symbols and sigils and all those things. Is this anything that you've dived deep into, or have you rubbed shoulders with anyone in Hollywood that invited you to any satanic ritual parties or anything like that?
Well, let me put it this way, Nora. If I had, I couldn't tell you. But no, I actually know less about that. I know a certain amount about the nuts and bolts, and I'm becoming more aware of sort of consciousness issues. The occult part, not so much. I don't know why that is. I think it's because I haven't, there's only so much time in a day to study something, and I just haven't devoted too much time to it. I'm not saying that there is no connection. Maybe there is. The Nazis certainly thought there was a connection, but I, I, I got my hands full with the topic as it is, I guess. But I'm always willing to, listen. But I have not. Um, I have not seen evidence of a cult anything in my lived experience.
Estimate, did you want to jump in here, and then we'll go to Charleston?
Yeah, hey, what's up, Bryce?
Hey, by the way, is Estimate, are you the folks behind the comic book?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and the film
fantastic.
stuff.
You really great work.
Thank you. Yeah, so my question is more on the Hollywood side. When you were making Dark Skies, and this is something I've been running into,
Hmm.
when you're having these meetings with people, there seems to be a tendency to because these people are looking on the outside in, right? When
Right.
they're talking about the UFO
Correct.
topic, and they try to finagle it and like push it in a different direction when you feel like you don't really need any of that extra stuff. And I think we've seen a lot of that, like in Project Blue Book recently
Oh,
on the History Channel and other like contemporary films. So I just did you have a strategy of corralling it back to like what the vision originally was, or like how to keep it faithful and authentic in your work versus all the people trying to get their hands on it?
well, you bring up a great point. I mean, I knew Tracy Torme, for example. He's passed on, but he was very knowledgeable of the topic. He wrote Fire in the Sky, and he spent weeks talking to Travis Walton about his experience and tried to write an authentic script about it and did. But when the studio read his script, they said, "Hey, this abduction thing, it just doesn't seem very exciting." And he goes, "Well, but that's how it happened according to Travis." And they go, "Yeah, well, you know what, if you stick with that, I just don't think we're going to be making this movie." And so Tracy had to write a new abduction sequence. And for people who've seen Fire in the Sky, that is one of the creepiest, scariest, most well delivered abduction sequences on film. It's just not true, at least according to Tracy and Travis from his experiences. So there is that. Also, David O'Leary is a friend of mine, and he was the creator of Blue Book. And I think he would probably admit to you that many of the things that are portrayed as if they are fact in Blue Book are not facts at all. In fact, I would one of the things I would give credit to you and your work on Estimate is, you try to lay it out kind of the way it is within the confines of the cultural work that you're doing. I mean, you're not writing a dissertation for a college, you're writing a comic book, right? So you get a little bit of artistic license, but you've done a really good job with it. I have fought those issues. I went in with an official denial script, for example, that I thought was fairly accurate, and then things get chipped away, and certainly with Dark Skies, uh, we did have to fight some creative battles. Although one of the interesting things about Dark Skies is it was so strange from the beginning. It was just such a for many executives, it was just like my agent begged me not to take Dark Skies out. He said, "Don't try to sell this; it'll destroy your career." Um, he just didn't get it, and he just said, "You can't do this. This will ruin you." But I did it anyway. And what I was going to say is that because it was strange enough to say JFK and UFOs, and we're going to use real characters and all that, a lot of executives were just didn't even want to take it on. They just said, "Well, you guys know what you're doing, just keep doing it." And then as the show, uh, we were on Saturday night before there were DVRs, so there's no chance for anybody to discover it. And at a certain point, you realize we're going to get canceled, but we're still in production. And at that point, the network and the studio said, "Do whatever you want to do, just don't spend a dime over your budget." And that became kind of a joyous run to the finish because nobody cared except for us. We cared. Um, so it's different, and I think that anybody who has ever done anything about UFOs has gotten a lot of odd feedback and notes that could fill binders. Um, and I can say that that's not true at the things I've done. There were notes. Now there were fewer notes at Taken, probably because Steven Spielberg wants to do something. Who's going to tell him not to, right? They're going to be very cautious about notes. But when I was doing Dark Skies, my partner and I had credits and everything, but I wasn't a force like Spielberg, so I got notes. Got a lot of notes.
Yeah, Dark Sky seems to be the perfect fever dream because it is so out there that you kind of do have a certain leeway with everything that
Right.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen any of our film work? I feel like you would definitely like how grounded we kept the. I don't want to say mythos because I actually believe all these things happen, but there's a certain balance I think in keeping it grounded in reality and also entertaining the audience. And
I
frankly, I
think
think Dark Skies did a really good job with that.
I think I saw one of your videos where somebody's being interrogated. Is that correct?
There's
Um,
a couple.
oh no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, there's
it's
a couple.
between uh, the the two Air Force guys, and one of them is investigating, and the other is grilling him. Is that right? That's the one.
Yeah, the Mantel
Yeah,
case.
that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear, man. Dude, you're definitely been an inspiration. I am like John. I'm waiting for Dark Skies revival one of these days. We can only hope. But until then, like I think the world is in our hands if we want to make something. So it's great.
Absolutely. And by the way, what I sort of just for years, I just wanted them to let me reboot Dark Skies, and I finally had to just give up that dream because I couldn't even get them to release the DVD set. We got a lot of resistance to that, and not normal resistance. We got resistance where they said, "Well, we can't clear the music, so it can't come out." Well, music gets cleared for everything. So to say we can't clear the music, so your series can't come out. And now they say, well, we can't stream Dark Skies because it's shot in the wrong ratio. It's 4:3, not 69. Um, that's also, that could be fixed. They could scan it, they could do something, or
Yeah,
they could,
that's silly.
it's so there's still resistance to this day to a wide exposure of that series. Part of it, I think, is while it is true that we bought into we bought into dramatic license, but within the mythos of Dark Skies, we did a lot of real things. We did Socorro, we did Roswell, we did things, and we did Betty and Barney. We did a lot of things, and so I and we treated them in a way that made you say, well, I mean, the very theory of Dark Skies is there is history that you know and that we all know and that they teach in schools and they write books about. But if Roswell, for example, was a real anomalous event, then there's a whole lot of hidden history. And so what Dark Skies did is it said everything you think happened probably happened, but there are all these things underneath it and around it that you didn't know happened. And I think that's what made it so subversive. It was just very subversive. One of the reviewers, when it first came out, called it the most subversive show on TV, and I think it was because what made it dangerous, if you will, was to suggest that I mean the credits for Dark Skies, the main titles say they're here, they're hostile, and powerful people don't want you to know history is a lie. And so the concept, I mean, that's pretty radical. History is a lie to be putting on a commercial television broadcast every week. So I think maybe that's part of why it's dangerous.
I mean, that's probably the best review you can ask for, right? Someone saying subversive.
We're
I'm,
probably
I'm
not the
gonna
most subversive thing anymore, but that was then. Yeah.
I'm gonna drop down and let other people ask questions, but
Nice to
I
talk to
just
you.
wanted to say we are in the middle of some of those creative battles with some larger entities,
Yep.
and I would love to talk to you about your experience, maybe in a private channel
Well,
or
talk
something.
to Tyler. He'll hook us up.
Awesome, man. All right,
All
cool,
right.
man.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot,
All right.
guys.
Bye.
Sounds good. Just a reset. How are you on time, Bryce? Are you good for a little bit? Just
Good. Okay. It's how about like 10 more minutes, something like that.
sounds good. We'll got about three or four more hands.
Okay.
Everybody, thanks everybody for jumping in the
I'll
space,
stop
and we'll do a
talking with
little bit of
such super
procrastinating.
long answers. I'll
No,
try to keep myself
no, it's all
communicating.
good. We'll go
Yeah.
to a couple of the new speakers who jumped up. We'll go to Experience, J Just, and then Trazin to end the space. What's up, Experience? What's up, bro?
Peace, peace. What up, Bryce? Thanks for hopping on and doing this. I had to sneak in the corner of the office to chat real quick. Wanted to touch on some of the Hollywood stuff as well.
Yeah.
Your story about, having some spooks come in and, kind of overlook your process. Have you heard any other rumblings of anything like that happening again? I'm thinking I've heard stories about the movie Signs, about some government guys signed to that particular movie to oversee that process. And then there's other shows out there, movies out there that potentially have some information that might be accurate or not. Like, you'd mentioned Taken, and then of course your show. Have you heard anything else similar
I,
to something that
you
happened
know,
to you?
I want to be clear about this though. I've tried to find other people that had anything quite as direct as what we had happen, and I don't turn that up. And by the way, I want to make clear, nobody came in and oversaw our process. In effect, what they offered us was a deal, and Brand and I said we don't want your deal. Right? We're not letting you in to oversee our process. Because my take was, I've already, the network and the studio just want me to get the scripts in on time and the films shot. They don't. I'm not going to get bonus points by saying I've got intelligence community people overseeing my work. So we didn't take that so-called deal. The other thing is that what I do think there's evidence for is that there is continually, when people want to do a like if you're Michael Bay and you want to do Battleship. I don't know if Battleship is his movie. Might I think it is, but some of those big military movies, uh, where it's military fighting aliens, the military will actually come in and help on a movie, uh, if it doesn't make them look bad. They don't want to look bad, but they do want to show off their toys so that they look formidable. So some of that has happened, but that's not the same as sort of saying to somebody, yeah, this UFO thing, yeah, man, it's all real. Let me give you some stuff that you can use. I I have a harder time turning up those stories. I've heard a few. I'm trying to track them down, and I'll be talking more about them as I do. But they're not as common as you'd think, and it's very hard. If somebody actually took a deal, they wouldn't talk about it. That's the problem. So, like if my partner and I had said, "Hell yes, come on in, we're your guys. We'll do whatever you say. Just tell us the truth." Well, then I wouldn't be talking about this right
Yeah, we
now,
wouldn't be here right now. Exactly.
right?
Gotcha.
So
Thanks.
that's
Appreciate
part of
that.
the problem on this whole thing. Trying to really uh, get to the it's as thorny a thing to prove as the phenomenon is.
Gotcha. Thanks. Appreciate that, Bryce.
You bet.
J Just, what's up?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Bryce.
Hi.
Um, I have a few behind the scenes questions. I don't know if you can answer or not. We're all just wondering. First one is, do you know anything about what's happening behind the scenes with Skywatcher?
Hmm. I do. Um, but um, the the very not a lot. Like Ross is very tied into that. Um, he has told me a couple of things, but he's told them to me and said, you know, this is not for broadcast, and I have to respect that because it's his. I assume he's going to be talking about. He's going to continue to talk about this, but I don't know that it's my place to do it when it was told to me confidentially in that way. And it's not shocking things or anything. And to be quite honest with you, I haven't paid that much attention to them, so it's just a kind of a passing um, a passing conversation that I've had with Ross off camera, if you will. And in general, I don't know what I make of Skywatcher. I mean, the idea that they have a dog whistle that calls them, the idea that they think they can call things psionically. I mean, you show me. That's, I guess, my take.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks
I
for
appreciate the question, and I don't mean to be uh, like I know people are frustrated when Ross says I believe this, but I'm not going to tell you who my source is, and that's all I can tell you. And I really don't want to be that guy. I mean, that's hard enough for him. I don't want to. I want to be free to talk. I just don't really know very much about it. That's the main reason.
well, I understand if it's said in confidence.
Yeah.
Another question I have is the Swedish scientist who made announcement this week. They found something big. Uh, Beatrice
Right. Yeah.
Via. Yeah. Do you know anything about
I
that?
don't. I I know who she is. I've heard her speak. But I honestly, what is the story? What you obviously know more than me right now. What is she saying?
I think it's just
Not
speculation
much.
on what's been discovered is a signal or an anomaly or the object that Anamanakua
Oh,
is.
right.
Whatever you. It's like another event where I think where getting data to support that something's flying through our solar system that's not usually supposed to be there.
Well,
Or satellites
sure. I
as
mean,
well. That
listen.
might not be ours.
Here's the one good piece of news about that. All right, if she's got something to say like that, I mean, she's a reasonable person. I'm happy to hear it. And by saying this, her work can be checked. So there will be people out there attempting to check her work, and that will escalate this conversation. If it gets to the place where other people are able to say, we see it too, and we form the same conclusions or whatever, bring it on.
Do you see, Bryce, another country doing disclosure before the U.S.? Is that like I feel like Ross was kind of hinting at that in a way.
I've always thought that's a possibility. In fact, the bigger question that one should ask is why haven't they? Why has the whole world, including the militaries and the governments of hostile nations, all come to the same conclusion? We shouldn't talk about this as openly. What what's up with that? And there are different answers to it. One simple answer is they wouldn't know what to disclose. Just because they know something is true doesn't mean that they want to do it. Now, let me put it this way: somebody could change the whole disclosure thing just by imagine if the United States intelligence community realized, say, that China was going to disclose, or if not China, Russia, or the Vatican, or Brazil, or whatever. Somebody was going to disclose, they were going to trot out a craft or a body or something, and we knew it was real, and that it was imminent. Then we might do it because we'd want to be out front of that. So somebody could force us to disclose. The question right now is everybody seems to be waiting on everybody else to do it, and listen, I think I'm a smart guy, but I'm not that smart. I can't quite figure out why that's the case. I think about it a lot, and I know there's a lot of people that also think about it, and I talk to people about it, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Thanks, Bryce. All right, we'll go to Trazen and then we'll close it up for everybody for the space. Thanks, guys.
All right, I got a couple more questions. What is your take on the higher ups in the government that are associated with Scientology?
For the
Mm.
narrative.
Well, what's the phrase? You're getting ahead of your headlights. I would be doing that if I started talking about that because I don't know a lot about Scientology, and I certainly don't know about Scientology and government as it relates to UFOs. I think we do know from several se- several sources that there appears to be some folks in the government who have been dealing with this issue for years who do so from a religious perspective. That much I know, but I don't know about Scientology. I
Well,
really do.
for
I
I'm
hate
just
to be
gonna
the
say
guy that
for
doesn't know
yeah, go ahead.
anything. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for instance, like, Tom DeLonge, basically his narrative that he's pushing is almost word for word like the Scientology religion. So
Is
just
it really? I did
yeah,
not know that. Oh wow.
basically.
Um, well, it's interesting. I mean, Tom DeLonge is I mean, if you listen to all of Tom DeLonge's things, in fact, if I had the time, I would listen to everything Tom DeLonge said, and then I would write it up into an article that summarized it. And maybe somebody has already done that.
Tom
Uh,
DeLonge is the new book too, in the book club that you're reading,
yes,
right?
exactly. And I'm reading one of his books right now. I'd like to, I mean, what do we know about Tom DeLonge? Well, we know that I don't think it's just his word. I think it's been confirmed through emails and so forth that Tom DeLonge did make inroads. And clearly he made inroads, or we wouldn't have had all these people standing with him on the stage when they announced To the Stars Academy. So he whether it's true or not true is the question, but he has definitely been told a story.
Why do you
That's
And
think
kind
he's
of like
gone?
what
Why do
I'm
you think he's
saying
gone
is,
so quiet though, Bryce? Why do you think Tom DeLonge has been shifted? Where I would have thought he'd been like, "See, I told you all." Instead, he's kind of gone a little bit dormant.
well, if I can just be completely personal and honest and um, um, a little thoughtful about it, there are many times in the last years where I've been associated with this, where I'll look at my kids or my family or whatever, and I'll just go, why am I doing this? Am I putting people at risk? What should I shut my mouth up and just go do something else? you know and it's because it's this kind of a scary topic, and it's a topic that the more you study about it, things have happened to people and all that. So I don't know Tom DeLonge. I've not met him. I've read a lot about him. I know a lot of people that do know him. um, I would say my best guess would be that he had one of those moments where he said, I put myself out a little too far on this thing, and I do have an option. I can go back to being a rock star. Maybe I should do that, because I've done that myself. In fact, the more I've done Need to Know with Ross Coulthard and sort of embraced my journalistic side, the more of these days I have where I say to myself, maybe I should not do this. Maybe I should just go back and write Hollywood stuff full time, because at least they'd pay me for that, and it would be safer.
Well, especially
So
with the feedback of the last month, of
yeah.
caught in the storm of what it's been. So,
So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be too dramatic about the thing, but we all know the phenomenon, it has its own issues, and then of course the way that the government and others have dealt with the phenomenon has its own issues. So I would just find the simplest explanation for Tom DeLonge going dark, if you will, and it would be he probably just thought, you know what, I need a break. Maybe he'll come back and have a lot to say about it.
sounds good.
He also had his business fall apart, right? So there's that, and he had
Right.
everybody
It
leave.
shifted a little bit from the
Yeah,
disclosure part to, being a full media movie company.
yeah. Which it doesn't really seem like it is. So I mean, I don't know. I Didn't he just go back and start playing concerts again?
yeah, they were touring recently, I think.
Yeah.
So he might just
I
be
mean,
busy with
let me
that.
put it this way, guys. If I had the option, nice as everybody is on this spaces, if I had the option to go be a rock star, I'd probably go do it.
Right. Touring on concerts in the country where everybody's cheering for you,
No
or
offense, no
being
offense
caught in the
intended
drama
to anybody.
of the UFO
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, why not? So who knows? I mean, there are a lot of human explanations for these things too, and that might be one of them.
Well, thanks, Bryce. Appreciate
Yeah.
you coming by, spending the time. We're going to close up the space. Everybody like and share the space. Tag UFO Twitter Week this week for the discussions. We got another space coming up in just a couple hours with Missile Man. Thanks again,
Good
Bryce.
luck with
Did you want
your
to?
UFO Twitter week. I hope
Thanks.
you cover a lot of territory. And let me just end by just saying to everybody, thank you for being here. I appreciate you listening to me. I wish I had shorter answers and talked to more people, and it was more of a conversation. But I do appreciate everybody that showed up, and thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night. I've shared up above. Everybody, check out the latest Project Book Club episode with Bryce and Chrissy. We debuted it today. Check it out. Go interact with it, like and share that. And appreciate Bryce for the time to share the space. UFO Twitter Week's going to be going all week. Jump in the spaces, join the discussion. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Peace.